This week's double Torah portion, 7 times a year, we have a double portion. It's called Matot Maseh, and I want to tell you now, it's regarded by some as among the most boring of the year. Not because of the part Grant Baxter will chant tomorrow. He chose the concept that's in this double portion of cities of asylum, of refuge for involuntary manslaughter. Lawyers and compassionate souls love that chapter that Grant will read. But the other part he will not be reading is like a triptych. It mentions all the stops the Israelites took during our ancestors' 40-year journey through the wilderness. That's what Maseh means, journeys. Matot, the first word, means the tribes. So the text reads basically, the Israelites journeyed from point A to point B. Then they went from point B to point C to point D. And to make matters worse, the places have names that are really hard to pronounce, and it all seems boring and repetitious. And they don't even get to the promised land. The book of Numbers ends before they arrive at their final destination. It sounds like a Chevy Chase vacation movie with the kids asking from the back seat, "Are we there yet? How much longer?" What's the point of this Torah portion? What sense does it make? There are lots of answers to that question in our tradition, but when I recently read the story of one of my colleagues' journey, it threw light on this week's portion and how it might relate to your life and mine. This rabbi writes, and I quote, "It wasn't supposed to happen this way. I was supposed to be heading home after speaking and visiting my family in Philadelphia. I arrived at the airport ready for my return flight, anxious to get back to work, looking forward to a quiet dinner with my husband. The flight is delayed. I'm not overly concerned. This happens all the time. I decide to treat myself to a frozen yogurt. It won't spoil my appetite. Dinner will be later with my husband at our favorite Italian restaurant, I thought. I call my husband to tell him that I'll be a little late, but to make reservations at that restaurant. An hour passes, and the flight attendant announces the boarding will commence. I board the plane confident that I'll be home in a few hours. 3 hours later, the plane is still on the runway. The book I've been trying to read isn't that good. The cabin is hot, and I'm thirsty. No one's serving drinks. I am not supposed to be here. I have appointments the next morning and work waiting on my desk. I was supposed to have a quiet evening with my husband before the start of a busy week. By my last call, he's tucked away in bed. I wish I was there. I'm not supposed to be here. Finally, the flight's canceled. It's past midnight. I wait another hour in line to rebook a flight for the next morning. There are many people in the same situation, but I'm not especially friendly. I don't want to talk to anyone. After rebooking, I finally find my way to a small hotel near the airport. It's past 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm shortening a very long story because it's a short night. She wakes up early, returns to the airport, eventually boards the plane. She writes, I find myself seated next to a gentleman from Indianapolis. He too had been on the canceled flight the night before. We commiserate. Neither one of us is supposed to be here. I find out what he does, and he finds out that I'm a rabbi. I often hesitate to reveal my profession to strangers when I travel, she says, in order to avoid engaging in long conversations about religion. By the way, I do the same thing. I don't lie. But when I'm on planes, people ask what I do. I honestly say I work with funeral homes. They changed the subject immediately. So this rabbi, she writes, I'm too tired to fashion another identity. For years, my airplane companion begins, I had questions I wanted to ask a rabbi. There's certain things about Judaism I don't understand. I am glad you are here. We talk, Somehow, despite only a few hours' sleep, she says, the right words come. The 2-hour flight passes quickly. By the time I arrive home, I am no longer irritable. Now I understand. I was supposed to be there. And then, just to condense it all, the rabbi reflects on what she's learned from this experience. And just one more quote from a long essay. She says, I always thought that airplane terminals and airplanes were merely necessary passageways to enable you to get to your destination. What's supposed to happen occurs elsewhere, either in the place where you are coming from or the place to which you were going. I had often wished that some Star Trek technology would allow me to be beamed to the location where I needed to be. Imagine how much more could be accomplished if we avoided the journey, that annoying interlude. If God is calling us to be present somewhere, why isn't it possible to do away with the long road to the appointed place? The question this rabbi poses is the question the Torah is asking this week. What do we need the hassles of the trip for? Why can't we just skip over the journey and get to where we're supposed to be? Why can't we just get to where we're going? To which the answer is, how do you know where you are supposed to be? How do you know why you are where you are? And how do you know that while you are so busy fixating on where you think you ought to be, that you are not missing out on things that are calling out to you right where you are? The rabbi was thinking about being somewhere else other than where she was, but God was in the place that she thought she wasn't supposed to be, and she did not know it. The point isn't the beginning or the end, our place of origin or our destination. The journey is the point, the opportunity to hear the call and to respond to it. So I want to close with a well-known story of the yeshiva student who hungered to someday, somehow, meet the prophet Elijah. You know, the one you open the door for on Passover and sing goodbye to and open on Saturday night when Shabbat ends. The boy's father told him that if he would stay up all night and really study with purity and devotion, Elijah might come. The student did as his father instructed. He studied all night, but nothing happened. Then one night, while he was studying, there was a knock on the door of the Beit Midrash, where the synagogue was. And when the student opened the door, there was no one there but an old man who wanted something to eat. The student was annoyed that this beggar was bugging him, taking him away from the destination of his holy studies. And so he gave the man a bit of food and ordered him to leave. Next morning, when the student told his dad about the intrusion, the father sighed. Son, that intruder was the prophet Elijah. And now you have missed the opportunity of meeting him. From that day on, the story goes, this yeshiva student always welcomed every stranger that he met as warmly as he could, no matter how busy he was, just in case. And he grew up to become a famous scholar. But whether he ever again had the opportunity of meeting Elijah or not, this one no one can say for sure. It's more than just a story. It's a reminder to us all that the journey is as important as the goal, and that if we keep our eyes and ears and our heart open along the way, we may learn more as we travel than we will from the goal of our trip. The whole trick of the spiritual life, let me give it to you. It's to be where you are, to really be in the moment and in the place that you find yourself in, and not to be so possessed and not to be so focused on the place towards which you are going that you don't see the divine sparks that call out to you on the way. The point of this week's portion, which means journeys, is that we need to pay attention to the place that we're in as we travel. We may not want to be in this place that we're passing through, but you and I are in this world to be awake and alive to where we are and to what is going on around us wherever we are. Maybe that's why the Torah portion is named not destinations, but journeys. Because in the end, as the rabbis teach, life is a journey. And what matters most on the journey is not only what we see, but what we notice. Not only what we hear, but what we pay attention to. It's what we listen to and what we respond to along the way that determines the meaning of our lives. I hope you agree. And let us say, Amen.